Welcome to the Dudes of Thread podcast. The Dudes of Thread podcast is here to open your mind when it comes to specialty embroidery, applique, patchwork, and multimedia. From ideation to design to sourcing, we want to help you help your customers elevate their merchandise.
We've done the research, made the mistakes, and are excited to share this nerdy fashion content. Join us as we decorate our way to creativity, one stitch at a time.
So it's been a while since our first episode. We had the holidays and the holiday rush. We do have to help our clients, so we got a little behind, but we're all the trade show events are gone and we are ready to continue Dudes of Thread. You excited about this, Joe?
Absolutely. I'm very excited about this. The trade show was great. Specifically, we're talking about the Impressions Expo trade show in Long Beach. I had a blast. I had the privilege of co-teaching with Eric Campbell, Justin Armenta in a segment called the Technique Toolkit. This was in Long Beach. It was a really awesome show. I could tell you at least some of the better takeaways that I got was, I take for granted tricks that I kind of glaze over. The fact that not a lot of domestic factories have all these abilities and access to all these materials. So one of my classes, the big takeaway was talking about different thread thicknesses and the variances. But the big feather in my hat, the takeaway, these guys have been in the industry for 25, 30 years. And my big feather in hat takeaway was that these guys loved what I had and what I brought to the table. They loved the developments that existed in my brain 20 years ago. And it was just a really, really cool scenario. And, after all these years, they felt super jazzed to get on a machine and move in a new experimental direction. And that was just a really awesome experience. I was very honored to be able to bring to the table something that not only 100 and something people in the class didn't quite know about, but even the seasoned people in the industry, they came out of that with just an amazing experience to share that with them and to see their reactions to it.
Well, I think that goes to show. I think people get very rested on their laurels in our industry. I feel like if more of us had that kind of childlike curiosity, knowing that we can always learn more, there's someone out there that has a wealth of knowledge that can benefit us. And that's what I love about this community, that you're dealing, or you have been dealing, on the more technical side of things. And the Needle Bar podcast that you were on the other day, they're very technical as well. And that's why I love what we want to do here with Dudes of Thread, to bridge that gap between the technical and the commercial, or the client focused types. Because, a lot of distributors within our industry, they sell embroidery all day, every day, but they might have never seen the digitized file. They don't know the first thing about different thread types or stitch types and applique. And so that's what I'm excited about, to share our passion. You come from technical, I come from the other side of more, the retail side. And so we're kind of bringing our powers together, and how can we keep that communicating to have an audience like you're building with the digitizers and embroidery shops, but then also, because I think we can offer them, it might not be the technical side, but it could be the retail side and the techniques and the design and creative. So that's going to be fun to see where this goes, as you are, talking with these people that are actual technicians or manufacturers. And then in my, perusing in the industry, it's more on the creative and design and fashion. And so building an audience, we might change this as we go along, but I'm real excited to pick this up again and talk about the stuff we talk about every day, just behind slack doors.
Yeah, exactly. One of the big challenges that I'm currently facing ever since I started teaching, like at the Fort Worth show, for example, is I started off the class with, saying that traditions are peer pressure from dead people.
Yes.
If
I
you
love
only, if you continue to do what you've always done, then that's what you'll have. So I'll tell anyone that'll listen to do your best to challenge your suppliers. You're looking for challenging them to provide you with materials and tools that are a bit unconventional. And that's one of the things that I'll continue to always teach to anyone who will listen, because, stepping outside of the norm is the best thing, for you at that point. So just keep in mind that there are settings that you're going to have to think about. Not everything is going to be exactly verbatim to what typical normal needles and thread you're using now. Typical densities, typical settings, and you cannot just take one of these larger threads and just put them in an environment with an existing stitch file on something that you already have successful, and it's just going to run. It has to be really specifically thought about in its own way. So with keeping that in mind as a price to be paid, there's I'll sidestep just a little bit and just explain that, 20 years ago when we first started doing these techniques, we didn't have any specialty materials at our supplier. We went out and found things that we knew we were going to try and make work. We didn't necessarily know they were going to work or weren't going to work, but we had to try them out. So one of the things with running larger threads that we learned is that the loop typically in the embroidery machine doesn't have enough time for the hook to catch it when you're using fatter threads. It doesn't mean it won't work. It does work, but you have to slow your machine down a little bit. And in the extreme cases of running even larger thread, going from, let's say, a Tex 40 to a 60 or an 80, you would actually have to retime your machine, meaning that you'd have to actually pull the side of the machine off and then retard the timing about 2 degrees so that the hook has a little bit extra time before it grabs the loop. And, back in my day, that's how we did it, right? So, I end up moving on to some domestic factories after, leaving Abercrombie. And during my time with Saint Segal, they had two laser bridge machines actually feeding four 12-head machines actually, but 2 12-heads on each side of the aisle there. And I remember during that time, we were switching everything over to sewing threads because of the low shrink factor in the wash. But I remember Schmetz had come out with this FHS needle system, which has a little bit more of like a scarf carved out of the back of the needle, and it allowed the loop to form a little bit easier and a little bit faster within the process of the embroidery, and the loop and hook connection. And during the days, just again to jump back, during the days of ANF and Rule, we had to use the very specific ballpoint needles. We had to use very specific fabrics in order to get that many stitches to not only sew successfully, but also that it wouldn't have any adverse properties, coming out of the wash and it's puckered, or coming out of the wash and it's a little bit wavy, etc. There's all these things that we had to do to make sure that wouldn't happen. So, we got to be cautious with running larger thread, and it's just a little bit of a bummer because just the other day I got the bad news that Schmetz is discontinuing those needles. So so I'm kind of dealing with that right now. But I do have one other contact who's supposed to be helping me out, with somebody who's still got a line on all those needles. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they got there.
Bummer. Well, I think that's, being able to, for at least the distributors out there, they'll never probably get into the nitty gritty of the needle and cam time, but it's how, what we want to help with is if they see something on Pinterest or through our conversations, what do you think is the best way for them to approach their first digitizer? Because you can talk about the importance of the digitized file before it even hits the garment, and then how to not necessarily convince but encourage your embroidery shop, or if whether it's in-house or you outsource it, how to push them a little bit to get them to go outside of that box and get you something that's completely different. I think people yield to that left chest logo with embroidery thread because the customer doesn't know, so they're not requesting. People in our industry aren't necessarily aware of the ins and outs. You know, all embroidery is not created equal, but to most people that they only see that one type of embroidery. And then how do they communicate it with their production people or their embroidery shops to accomplish, you know, what they're trying to, again, in the design phase, not necessarily after the fact.
Yeah, and I think the big question that you asked there is how. You know, the only thing that really makes any sense to me for the how is to educate as many people as much as we possibly can. I mean, you know, the having a platform like this and to be able to speak to people at this level has been incredibly gratifying and also flattering. You know, there's so many people that follow me now. There's so many people that are going to continue to follow my work, and that was just something that, you know, it just didn't compute with me in the past. You know, some punk kid, some punk kid from Southern California. What does he know? You know, he's not going to tell me how to run my embroidery shop. You know, that was the attitude from the majority of the time, you know, in the last 30 years of my career that we had to deal with. Like, you have to kind of little by little introduce things into a production environment and get people to believe that you know what you're doing and you know how to do something. And now it's been so amazing to use education as our tool to help shops understand this. Now, a big gap in the industry, which is I think you kind of identified right now, is how does the average shop learn how to do this? And what are the threads? What's the backing? What's the needles? What's the digitizing settings? What's all this? And the easy answer is a lot of it was never handed to me. It was all trial and error. But the difference was I wasn't afraid. You know, the big difference is, you know, if you really think about it, if you go up one size of thread and you go up one size of needle, then you only have to adjust your digitizing a little bit. If you go up a couple sizes, you got to adjust your digitizing a lot. That's a much larger step. So I think Eric Campbell covered it very well in his Friday podcast. Yeah, the take up, because he covered it very well. He said it very accurately, which is the stuff Joe has to show you. Yes, it's cool, but yes, it does require, you cannot just use the same material, same settings, same everything. You have to change some of the things you're doing in order to get that. Some of the people I showed washaway backing to, I didn't have a piece with me at the show class, but I showed them videos of me actually like using it in a real world situation, not just as a backing, but also as a topping for like kiss cut letters, where we stopped cutting at the washaway material, but the entire letter set was cut on a plane. So you would just lay that whole thing down in one shot. You would sew it down, peel off your applique, and the only thing left is the washaway. One piece of washaway on the back, and you just throw in the wash, it comes out, and the letters are perfect. You know, because you didn't have to sit there line in place, you know, each letter. So that was, you know, you just see these people's minds just being blown. Like, what is this called? Washaway? Like, what? I'm like, yes, it's been around for like 35 years. It's just, they don't know, again, that bridge of how do they even know to use it? It's like, that thought alone boggles my mind. And all I want to do is just scream to the masses. This is something that's readily available to everyone. Ask your supplier, ask your local supplier. Yeah.
And that's, you know, if people are watching and they are a distributor, a designer, account manager, you know, for a broker, reach out to your production people or your shop and tell them about Eric's Take Up, because he gets super technical on the machine and all of that. And then we want to help, you know, kind of show all the different things that are like that you can already do that your embroiderer doesn't even have to adjust anything. Literally, new stitches can be unique and doesn't require, it's only finding the right digitizer. So in all of this, I think if you're not pushing your embroidery shop, or if you're outsourcing overseas, there might be some disconnect. But isn't there so many of these stitches already pre-done in the digitizing software, Joe, if I'm not mistaken?
I mean, absolutely. The digitizing software is going to have a ton of motifs and things. Like, just for example, like the faux chain stitch. Almost every single digitizing software out there has some version of that little triangle shape to emulate a faux chain stitch. And the only difference, really, when you digitize, let's say, you've got your standard 40 weight thread, which is what everybody's using, for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
If you went at one, which is like a text 27, if you went up to a text 40, and instead of a 7511,
right?
Yeah, it's a little thicker. It's a sewing thread.
Do the image.
Yeah, exactly. I'll get the image up here so they can see the difference between how clean, embroidery thread is, just because of how it's made. And then, of course, spun poly, which just is super furry, fills in very nicely. But if you just went up one size of thread and one needle size, so it's like text 40 and an 80-12, and then you took out about 12 to 15% of the density of what you were going to do, you could just throw that needle in that thread and it'll just run. It won't have to retime your machine. Everything's fine. It's when you start getting into like the Burmalanas and the Tech 60s where the thread is so incredibly thick and it's just woolly. It's like trying to pull a sweater through your teeth if you're trying to floss. Like, that's kind of what it's like. It's just, it's not a smooth thread to run, but it can run at a machine speed. Well, half the speed of what most people are doing right now in their embroidery machines. The ZSK was doing almost 2,000 RPM on the showroom floor while I was there. It was fluctuating between 1,800 and 2,000. But, that all makes sense if you're doing customization or personalization on something quick. You're in a mall, you want to get it in, get it out. But if you've got 100 and something thousand stitches to sew, I mean, good Lord, that's
a lot.
Just print it or something.
Yeah. What's exciting, Joe and I we're working on getting some sponsorships for the podcast. So once it's public knowledge, we're gonna want to show you. We'll take the same logo and we'll digitize it in a regular embroidery thread. We'll digitize it in a thicker text sewing thread, and then we'll try the Burmalana. So we always want to give visuals, because while me and Joe can eat it up, we want to make sure that you, the audience, knows what we're talking about. If a lot of it will be new to you, so we'll overlay images as we get them. But yeah, that's going to be exciting to just show what we've seen in retail, and then how can you integrate that into your clients' projects? Because at the end of the day, it's nice to do all that fun stuff, but what can you do just even a little deeper, a little cooler than what you're currently doing? And it's gonna say a lot to the customer. And again, why have all these vintage, faded, worn out garments and hats, and you're using shiny thread?
Right.
Even just that change to sewing thread is gonna make worlds of a difference, with the actually authenticity of that garment.
Absolutely. You really hit the nail on the head with the shiny thread comment, because, I'm telling anybody listen to, just that nothing cheapens embroidery faster than putting it on a t-shirt, and nothing cheapens vintage, style stitching faster than shiny thread. And it's not that it's, I hate that I probably left some people behind thinking that using embroidery thread is not good. And that's not the case at all. I'm just, advocating for, hey, you've got a pretty good sized toolbox, and that's what these empty slots are for. It's for these other threads and needles that you didn't even know existed. So that was a lot of fun really reading the room. I mean, you got a room with 100 and something people in there that are just hungry to learn something different, that have been doing the same left chests and hats, for years and years. And and if you're listening now and you feel like, yeah, but it pays the bills, you're absolutely right. It will always be the meat and potatoes of your business. You are absolutely right, and don't ever stop doing that. But to keep things fresh with your shop and to keep ideas fresh with your customers, yes. AMB3R Creative is going to do everything we can to help educate those and show people this is how we're doing it, and this is, the meat and potatoes of what we do.
For sure. And speaking of showing, you see these lovely shirts that we're wearing here. Yes. We are urban cowboys, but we bought these for the podcast because the embroidery is just on a whole nother level. It's from the brand Rockmount Ranch Wear here in Denver, Colorado. And they've been doing this for Hollywood people, for country music stars, for cowboys for over 100 years. And everything you see from the cuffs.
Oh yeah.
And we'll take pictures of these. The whole back is all embroidery. So we'll be able to showcase what we're wearing. I mean, pearl snaps, contrast piping. Joe's a little more rock and roll.
Oh yeah.
A little more country. Just joking.
That's right. That's that proverbial joke, right? What are you talking about? We play all kinds of music. We play country and Western.
That's right. Exactly. So we're big shout out to Rockmount. We're putting it out in the universe to get sponsored by them someday, so they can hook us up on their new creations, and we'll rock it and talk about the embroidery. These are sewing thread embroidery. Is that correct, Joe?
Oh yeah, no doubt. It's definitely sewing thread,
and they're fine. It's pretty thin like thread. It seems like.
Yeah, it does capture what I remember to be a little bit looking like rayon, but it's not like shiny. It's kind of in the middle.
Yeah,
it's not really flat matte either. But whatever it is, it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous, and yeah, I'm really excited to have one.
So we'll get a modeled shot of each of us wearing it, so we can show you this masterpiece.
We should probably put a mannequin on the. I'll do that for the folks at home. I'll put a mannequin on the slider, so we could get some.
There you go.
Some real close-up shots of it, so they can see how beautiful the. And you got your slider too, I think.
I need to get it set up. Yeah. I'm not as savvy.
Put a light on it.
I get it set up.
Run across. Awesome. Folks, you're going to be so excited. I was a little bit when Jeremy and I first started talking about this. I was a little like, what do we have to share when it comes to, Picker on Prep, and the amount of books alone that Jeremy has to reference this amazing culture. It is. I'll tell you what. A tip of the hat to these amazing Japanese authors who document our culture far better than we do. Yeah. And there's some pieces in there that I wish I would have saw 20 years ago when we were trying to invent this thing. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's so cool. And it was way cheaper back then too. I'm excited to showcase my books and just my findings online and inspire people.
Yep, and I will tell you, for the folks at home, this is not a yawn. This is extremely interesting information, and it's a wonderful trip, through that timeline to see how things came to be. It's going to be great.
Everyone knows that I love applique and prep culture and Ralph Lauren. With Joe working at Abercrombie, being a part of that preppy world, and then just my affinity for it over the years. I'm going to do a little segment called Picker on Prep. Welcome to Picker Loves Prep. I'm going to show you 3 different resources that I use to grow my knowledge of the prep and IV culture, from the fabrics to the decoration and just kind of the whole lifestyle. I really love all the different books that they have out there that you can just see where prep came from and how it's grown and crossed over into streetwear as well. I hope you enjoy. My first main resource is vintage magazines from Japan. Japan has done a better job of cataloging Americana, prep workwear, military, and they've been doing it since World War II. And so I have a bookstore in Japan that when they get some of these old pieces, they hit me up and I buy them right away. And it really does a great job at just highlighting not only the nostalgia of it, but how people are styling it today. Next is studying all things Ralph Lauren. There's a documentary called Very Ralph, and I've watched it 10 times now. Just what Ralph Lauren has created since 1967 when they started is beyond phenomenal. Just how they've stayed relevant, how the old look, how they've recreated the fabrics and the looks and the styles are just on another level that I will never accomplish, but I enjoy it so much, so I definitely have a man crush on Ralph. I wanted to show some of the books I have that help me when I'm having inspiration for a prep look. Last but not least, Pinterest is my go-to for all things digital prep. I have been building a board for 12, 13 years now, and you gotta go follow along. There's some amazing pieces in there. I'll go on eBay and I'll search vintage Ralph Lauren, vintage Abercrombie, vintage Lacoste, finding all these items on eBay that when someone buys them, they're gonna leave. And so I'll go ahead and pin it so I have a place of old prep stock. And then I'm constantly adding to it. I have the different decoration techniques. I have prep collegiate. And then I have a few other categories that kind of fall in line with that. It's definitely a go-to if I need some quick inspiration. I hope you can see how much passion I have for the prep look, and follow along as we come out with more content, and I'll share more of my love for prep. Fashion to the people.
Wow, that was awesome. It's so exciting to see all the different looks and feels of the past, and try to see, my mind is racing with all these ideas of how we're going to integrate that into our new pitches that we've got up.
Yeah, it just never goes out of style. It's classic and timeless. That's what I love about it. Doesn't matter that 20 years has passed since I started getting into it, but it's never going to go out of style, and it's always going to be modern, I guess, in a way that the Ivy prep look is forever and ever.
Yep, exactly. And speaking of, vintage, modern, we are going to do a new segment here on Dudes of Thread where we are going to challenge all of you to please submit an image, whether it's one of your best customers or a customer that's just really always been pushing you to get their item to the next level. We're going to invite you to submit your art, and we want to see what you're working on, because we want to take it, peel away a few layers, see what we can do to advise you or counsel you, if you will, to help with some ideas of how to get that thing off the ground and to that next level. It doesn't have to be prep. It could be something corporate. It could be something that's you've probably got a lot of people that I know that their best customers have some of the most boring logos. Yeah. So what can you do to make it right? So we'd be really excited to see your submissions.
Yeah, and even if it's like a graphic tee or a illustrated design, we'll just give you 2 or 3 ideas that we could see, whether it's multimedia or special. I mean, we know screen print as well, so we can talk about that, but then different unique stitches that you could do for a certain logo or design to just try something new, and you can show it to your customer. Whether they take it or not, they're seeing that you're thinking beyond just their logo on a shirt, that you want to make it better. So we want to help you help others.
Absolutely. Cool. So new segment we got here on Dudes of Thread. We are going to put in front of you a stitch file, and we're going to ask you to guess how many stitches you think that is. And the closest one gets a prize. Jeremy, tell me what the one.
Yeah, so we had some custom blank hats made for AMB3R Creative. And the only thing that it's branded on the inside and the buckle. We have beanies to choose from, some corduroy unstructured flat bills, and one of those camping flapper hats for all the outdoorsy people.
Yes, that's going to be awesome too. And for extra credit, you take that hat home. If you got your own shop and you sew something awesome on it, and you take a picture of it, throw it on social, and you tag us, even more things are going to come your way. We're going to shower you with gifts.
We'll be stoked about that. And then to kind of go into our next is
Super fun. So
Well, Joe, maybe we'll take a little break, and we'll cut to a segment that I think the people will enjoy.
all right, sounds good. We'll be right back.
All
Stick
right.
around.
It's time for where we show you the stitch file and you try to guess the stitch count.
Welcome back, you beautiful people. I'm one of your hosts, Chain Stitch Chad.
And I'm Whip Stitch Willie. And on this week's episode of Stitch Count Contessa, we are showcasing one of our clients' embroidered pieces.
That's right, Willie. One of our lucky guests will receive custom private label headwear from AMB3R Creative.
Rules are simple, Chad. Tag us on social media or through email with the number of stitches you think are in the file.
The person to get the closest will receive some awesome fresh goods and other stuff too.
Easy peasy. We will announce the winner in our next episode.
Good luck, and remember,
Snitches
get
stitches.
stitches.
Welcome back.
Yeah, I wonder if there's going to be anyone that guesses the amount of stitches in that picture. We'll definitely have to, whoever's the closest, and we'll hook them up with some free merch.
Absolutely. So with that, we're going to bid you adieu for this episode. We're really excited to see you on the next episode. And if there's nothing further,
Nope. Stitch
All
on,
right.
brother.
all right. Okay. Fashion to the people. Everybody take care of yourselves.
Later.